Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
4 students were found murdered.
The Idaho murders.
I see a rage killing somebody that lives within 3 hours.
To kill somebody with a knife, it's very personal. You're covered in their blood. You have exclusive pictures of inside the house.
It looked like a mess.
You spoke to someone who was at the party.
They told me that Ethan had words and that it got heated.
The gruesome quadruple murder of 4 university students has really transfixed the nation and left the tiny town of Moscow, Idaho, both frustrated and fearful as hours, days, and now weeks go by with police still yet to name a suspect or even a person of interest. On November 13th, sometime between the hours of 3 and 4 a.m., Ethan, Xana, and best friends Kaylee and Madison were stabbed to death in their house near the campus of the University of Idaho after a night of partying. Law enforcement says the 2 surviving roommates were asleep in their first-floor bedrooms during the attack and didn't wake up until later that morning. Now, at this point, police are not sure if the attack was a target on the house or the students. Kaylee's father believes the killer did target his daughter and her friends coming in through the second-floor sliding glass door. Now, either way, the families are demanding answers. But as of now, this whole thing remains a mystery.
There are plenty of questions and very few answers after 4 students at the University of Idaho were found murdered in their off-campus house. Authorities are calling it a crime of passion.
It is a complex and terrible crime.
It's the chilling last photo of 4 University of Idaho students taken just hours before they were found murdered.
Police still have no suspect, weapon, or motive in the killings of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and his girlfriend, Xana Kernodle. What they have said from the start is this was a targeted attack, but have not concluded if the target was the residents or the occupants.
The mystery deepened when police revealed the shocking information that 2 other roommates were inside the house when the 4 students were slaughtered. Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, both 21.
Investigators believe a, quote, edged weapon, such as a knife, was used.
Autopsies on the 4 students found each had multiple stab wounds. Some had defensive wounds, showing they fought with the attacker. And there was no sexual assault.
The night began at around 10:30 p.m. when the friends took an Uber to a downtown bar. They left a little after 1 a.m., and that's when they stopped by the food truck. 1:56 a.m., the girls take an Uber home. They were stabbed to death between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., along with Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle.
A major development tonight in the murder of 4 college students in Idaho. Detectives want to speak to the driver of a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra with unknown license plate. They say the occupants of the car may have critical information regarding the case.
We want answers too, and this is really, really difficult for those investigators who are investigating this crime.
We're really mad that there is someone who is responsible for this. We know that there's someone who saw something and no one's talking. We're not getting any answers, and we're not going to settle for that.
Look, we want to break down the details of this case that has online sleuths and armchair detectives trying to understand what happened. Joining me is Joseph Scott Morgan, a distinguished scholar of forensics at Jacksonville State University and host of podcast Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. Jonathan Gilliam, former FBI special agent, Navy SEAL, and author of the book Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and criminologist and investigative profiler, Dr. Casey Jordan, who has been with us before. It's good to see you again. See you. Dr. Casey, let me start with you.
Sure.
When you look at this, beyond the horrific nature of this crime, these 4 young people so tragically killed, is there anything that jumps out at you about it?
We have to consider that this is a town that's not had any homicides in 7 years. It's a university town, 26,000 people live there, but half, at least 13,000, are students.
Right.
So when you think about 4 people dying in one night with horrific slashings, okay, the stabbing of that knife shows a frenzy. So whoever went into that house, if it was targeted towards the human, which is what Kaylee's father believes, started with, in his words, the 2 girls, but then took the time to kill another couple. We don't know if the perpetrator went downstairs or was even aware that there were 2 unharmed people downstairs. So the idea that you have 6 people, it doesn't surprise me that the roommate slept through it, because I know how college kids are when they party on a Saturday night. But to go in and get out, take the knife with him, and leave no trace, because we're going to come up on a month very soon with no suspects. What stands out the most is that I would have guessed this was inner circle, somebody who knew these girls. I think Kaylee and Maddie were probably the targets if it was indeed targeted. And I would have thought that they would have a suspect by now, that they would have an arrest by now. And as time goes on, Dr. Phil, I am more and more convinced that this could be a random stranger, something like the Gainesville Ripper that we saw in Florida 30 years ago.
Right.
As time passes, the odds of that being true do increase.
Well, one of the things that most people don't know, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but the statistics I look at from the FBI is that about 50% of the murders don't ever get solved. And people think, are you kidding me, with DNA and all of that? But is that still an accurate number?
Yeah, Dr. Phil, I'd say that it is.
I think a lot of that is because guns are used in 80% of murders now, but this was stabbing. And that means DNA is much more plentiful than if you used a gun from a distance. What jumps out at you about this?
I see a rage killing, and I see somebody that potentially could have started with Kaylee. That's probably why you would see deeper impacts or more ferocious types of knife stabbing wounds. And then as they go from person to person, that would decrease, because killing, which most people don't understand the reality of killing with a knife, is a very violent, it's a very physically exhausting and also adrenaline exhausting. And by the time you get to a 4th person, you're going to be very exhausted. I think when you look at the totality of the circumstances of this attack, what you see is somebody that I think we're all in agreement, somebody that probably lives, I put it within 3 hours, because if it happened at 3, the sun came up around 7, most likely an attacker would want to be home and would be satiated. This is also a lot about satiation. So the person was probably satiated, exhausted, and didn't want to be out after the sun came up.
Well, for sure, because they're going to be covered in blood, right?
Yes.
I don't see how they couldn't be.
Yeah. Well, look, as seen on cable news network, News Nation, reporter Brian Enton explains the layout of the victim's house. Let's look at this so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Outside the murder scene here in Moscow, Idaho, still an active crime scene. You can see the crime scene tape is still up, still a police officer guarding the house. This is the front of the house, which is what you normally see. But if we walk to the side, no windows or doors on the side. But back of the house, you see there's a balcony. There's a slider on the 3rd level. On the 2nd level, there is also a slider. And we actually have some slides with the layout which kind of help explain it, because it's 3 levels. First level has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. There were no victims found on the 1st level. 2nd level has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And the 3rd level has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And we know that the victims were found on the 2nd and 3rd level.
Okay, so this was not a particularly complex house, but it was on 3 levels. And if the entry was on the 2nd level, or was actually the middle level, the ground level, and I think everybody is kind of assuming that that was the entry point.
It does make the most sense.
Yeah, it makes the most sense to come through that slider, which was ground level, so somebody could walk up and come through there. Coming up, eerie photos of inside the house where the murders took place. Now, one reporter's analysis plus the murder weapon, what the police are looking for when we come back. And I want to talk about this murder weapon, particularly with you, Jonathan, because you know a lot about this. when we come back.
Were the 4 college kids brutally murdered with a knife like this one? It's called a Rambo knife. It's got a 7-inch long blade. You can see part of this steel blade is serrated. Detectives have been going to sporting goods and other stores in the area to ask if they sold a brand like this made by K-Bar. The actual murder weapon has not been found, and police are searching dumpsters, hoping to find it.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest-to-goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at, I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
Tim adores his wife, but since junk sleep gave him a crick in his neck, he can't turn to see her.
Who's that?
Now he's convinced she's left him.
Michelle?
With our Love Your Mattress guarantee, finding the right bed is painless. Unjunk your sleep at Mattress Firm.
There's something new from Better Than Bouillon. Introducing the Culinary Collection. Exciting new flavors like sofrito for casseroles or adobo for fajitas, each adding a little something special to all your family favorites. But don't take our word for it. The Culinary Collection from Better Than Bouillon.
A fragrance this alluring could only belong to a powerful trash bag. With superior strength. The cherry blossom fragrance. It's all fabulous. It's all glad.
Red Lobster's finer points of fun dining. Creating your own ultimate feast is the ultimate form of shellfish-pression. Create your own ultimate feast is here. Choose 4 of 10, like new cheddar-based shrimp. Welcome to fun dining.
From the back to the middle and around again, I'm gonna be there till the end, 100%. Your love, you'll never have to run away. You'll always have a friend to play. You'll never go out on your own. In you will find a home. From the back to the middle and around again, I'm gonna be there till the end, 100%. Your love.
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? Hey, don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode, Saturday at 8/7 Central.
Kaylee Gonzalez's injuries were significantly more brutal than her best friend Maddie's injuries. If Kaylee's injuries were the most severe up on the 3rd floor, and there's no way out of the 3rd floor, would that mean the killer specifically targeted the 3rd floor? Because why would the killer go up to a floor where there would not be an easy exit for him?
Before now, we only knew they were found together, but we didn't know in Maddie's room or in Kaylee's room. And so as we look at the 3rd floor map right there, bedroom number E, or bedroom E, is Maddie's bedroom, and it looks out the back of the house, and bedroom F is Kaylee's bedroom, and it looks out the front, but also the back where the slider is.
That's right. We've confirmed that they were in Maddie's room, which is also interesting. That's something that we did not know. So Kaylee's injuries were significantly more brutal, but they were sleeping together in Maddie's room.
Well, that was a report from cable news network News Nation describing where victims Kaylee and Madison bodies were found. Now, DailyMail.com has been covering the case since the beginning. And so joining us now is DailyMail.com senior reporter and our good friend, Caitlin Becker, who has brought us exclusive pictures of inside the house. And Caitlin, you've been all over this, so let's get some details here and start by looking at the bedrooms where these victims were found. It's very likely that they came in the sliding door. And that's the one that you can walk up to, right? You can just walk up on the grass.
So the back of the house is ground floor?
is the second floor. And there's two possible points of entry there. There's a slider and a window, and there was a cinder block under a window, which were very close, and they're going into the kitchen.
Okay.
Now, Xana and her boyfriend, Ethan, were on the second floor there.
This is the patio ground access where someone could walk up.
Yeah.
And this is a sliding door.
And there's
then
a window near there, too.
And there was a window near there as well. And who was on this floor and in which bedroom?
So that was Xana and Ethan, and they were a couple, and I believe they were bedroom D.
Maddie and Kaylee were on the third floor. They were in which bedroom?
So they were in bedroom E, which was Maddie's bedroom.
Okay, they were over
Kaylee's
here.
bedroom was bedroom F, but Kaylee had moved out because she was graduating in December. So she was just back visiting for the weekend, had brought her dog with her, and her best friend from growing up was her roommate, Maddie. So they were sleeping in the same bed in room E, Maddie's room.
Then the third couple was in the basement on the first floor.
Mm-hmm. The roommates. Yeah, the two roommates. And so there were two empty bedrooms in the house.
Okay. The whole point is these guys say they didn't hear anything at all. And if they had been out partying and were zonked out and all, did it seem like that's possible that they could not hear anything?
It's certainly possible that they couldn't have heard anything. And we've also heard from other people who were living in the house in years prior, who had rented it before these girls did, saying that he was on the lowest floor, and unless someone was playing a television extremely loud on the second floor, extremely loud on the third floor, they really wouldn't have heard anything. As you can see, the house is laid out kind of funky, so I don't know what the acoustics are like. You also have to figure this is a house with a bunch of roommates in college, so a little noise is probably kind of normal. So maybe you hear walking around, it doesn't wake them up because they're kind of used to it.
Yeah. Did you notice anything odd with the pictures from inside the house?
It looked like a mess left from a bunch of kids before they went out for the night. That was below Xana and Ethan's room, and that is what looked like blood dripping through the foundation.
Real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get that. Baby, I wanna
Y'all ready for this?
As a freshly certified B Corp, Nespresso joins a global movement using business as a force for good. So we don't just cultivate beautiful coffees today, we're committed to creating a beautiful tomorrow. Nespresso, what else?
It's Macy's Gifts You'll Love to Gift sale now, with an extra 20% off gifts for all at every price. Plus, everyone gets $10 Macy's money for every $50 spent at Macy's. Moderate to severe eczema still disrupts my skin. Despite treatment, it disrupts my skin with itch. It disrupts my skin with rash. But now, I can disrupt eczema with Rinvoq. Rinvoq is not a steroid, topical, or injection. It's one pill, once a day, that's effective without topical steroids. Many taking Rinvoq saw clear or almost clear skin, while some saw up to 100% clear skin. Plus, they felt fast itch relief, some as early as 2 days. That's Rinvoq relief.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB, serious infections and blood clots, some fatal, cancers, including lymphoma and skin cancer, death, heart attack, stroke, and tears in the stomach or intestines occurred. People 50 and older with at least one heart disease risk factor have higher risks. Don't take if allergic to Rinvoq, as serious reactions can occur. Tell your doctor if you are or may become pregnant.
Disrupt the itch and rash of eczema. Talk to your doctor about Rinvoq.
Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
It's a new leader in town now.
Well, you the one just threatening me? Baby, dad here. That's what I say. Come for me, go low. If you want to, I'm going to hell. Okay?
Did you notice anything odd with the pictures from inside the house?
So the photos that we obtained at Daily Mail of inside the house are taken of that second floor. So you can kind of see into the common area here. You have the tamper tape on the wall, on the door where it's opening, and you're looking inside. We've got solo cups. There's a place for beer pong to be set up. There's a ton of dirty dishes, a half-drank cup of iced coffee. Everything looked pretty normal. You don't see blood, you don't see anything turned upside down. It looked like a mess left from a bunch of kids before they went out for the night. But what you did see in that one photo that cycled through was the outside of the house, and that was below Xana and Ethan's room. And that is what looked like blood dripping through the foundation.
Okay, so if that's true, that's a lot of blood to actually seep through.
Yes. And you would have to assume they were on the floor, because if they were on the bed, I would guess it would get soaked up by the bed, right?
Right. Now, this knife that was used is kind of a cliche among young people. This is a Rambo knife.
Right.
And so this is something that you see in video games. It's something you see in movies because it's a very macho-looking knife.
It's also in shadow boxes and sold. It's one of the cheaper end knives, so you don't have to be, you know, a lot of these knives are $200 or more for a really top quality knife. This is a cheaper knife.
Yeah.
So somebody that doesn't have a big bank account would probably order this. Would also lead me to believe it's a younger individual. Somebody just doesn't have a lot of money.
A real professional would not use that knife.
So we're issued a K-bar knife. Or I don't know about currently, but when I was in, we were issued that knife. And when everybody got out of training, everybody in my platoon immediately went and bought other kinds of knives because it's a thick knife. It doesn't hold an edge well, and the tip is prone to breaking off.
And there's also a guard in a frenzied attack. That's very likely to injure the one doing the stabbing if it's in a frenzied knife, which is likely to leave DNA from that individual.
Correct. And you know, again, when you're using that on 4 individuals, let's not look at them as people. Let's look at them as the objects that were being bluntly hit with this knife. You're talking about bone, cartilage, things that will dull a knife very quickly. So you would probably see a progression of smaller and smaller wounds, or not as deep, or the penetration just wouldn't be as good, and it would become a more physical attack from the very first start.
Well, the one thing Jonathan and I had spoken about relative to this type of knife, guess what it comes with? It comes with a sheath. And everybody's saying, we don't know, the knife isn't there. I think my question is, did he drop the sheath at the scene? Was that left behind? Do they have that clue to go on?
But in terms of looking at this from a forensic standpoint, we do know if 4 people are stabbed in rapid succession, the one that's stabbed first is going to have the most wounds and the deeper wounds.
Right.
And we know that you'll know that that's the person stabbed first because they won't have any of the other 3's DNA on them.
You're absolutely right, Dr. Phil. So there'll be the least amount of transfer DNA from that individual. Just imagine we've got A, B, C, and D. So for the first victim, once they are stabbed, and you know, as Jonathan pointed out, it would be you would have significance there because the individual would still be full of vim and vigor at that point. But from a DNA perspective, as you move to victim B, you're taking DNA from A and then essentially inoculating that individual with A's DNA and so forth and so on, until by the time you get to D, there is a high probability that you're going to have this succession all the way along where they will contain DNA perhaps of everybody involved in this case, and potentially the perpetrator as well.
Coming up, there are 4 hours missing for victims, Xana and Ethan's timeline. You know, where did they go? And not that they are suspected of doing anything they shouldn't have been doing, but are we missing any crucial information? Plus, what type of person would do something like this? We're going to talk about the profile of this kind of killer. We'll be right back.
We're going to look at people, acquaintances who might have had a vendetta. You don't see them continue with everyone else in the house. So that's what is really unusual from a criminological standpoint.
Closed captioning provided by...
Even when things seem quieter, the urge to protect means staying on the lookout to help keep others from harm. At Pfizer, we're driven by this impulse. We've reached hundreds of millions of lives with our COVID-19 response. and we keep innovating. Whatever comes next, we will respond fiercely, like family.
It's the You Are My Diamond sale. Get 30% off everything. Give the gift of shine at Zales, the diamond store.
When moderate to severe ulcerative colitis persists, put it in check with Rinvoq, a once-daily pill.
When UC got unpredictable, I got rapid symptom relief with Rinvoq. Check.
When UC held me back, I got lasting steroid-free remission with Rinvoq. Check.
And when UC got the upper hand,
Rinvoq helped visibly repair the colon lining. Check. Rapid symptom relief, lasting steroid-free remission, and a chance to visibly repair the colon lining. Check, check, and check.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB, serious infections and blood clots, some fatal, cancers, including lymphoma and skin cancer, death, heart attack, stroke, and tears in the stomach or intestines occurred. People 50 and older with at least one heart disease risk factor have higher risks. Don't take if allergic to Rinvoq, as serious reactions can occur. Tell your doctor if you are or may become pregnant.
Put UC in check and keep it there with Rinvoq.
Ask your gastroenterologist about Rinvoq and learn how AbbVie could help you save.
It's Macy's Gifts You'll Love to Gift sale now, with an extra 20% off gifts for all at every price. Plus, everyone gets $10 Macy's money for every $50 spent at Macy's.
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? Hey, don't keep me outside all this damn heat.
Yeah, it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode, Saturday at 8/7 Central.
There is nothing hotter than real, honest to goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at. I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
The best part about hosting Worst Cooks in America.
Oh, it's a learning experience.
Oh, I have to turn it on. I cut my little thingy. No. Ooh.
Watch out.
You'll get used to it.
Season premiere, Worst Cooks in America, Sunday, January 1st at 8 on Food Network.
Dozens of websites and postings from armchair detectives are springing up.
We're not getting any answers, and we're not going to settle for that.
It was Olivia who found the potentially crucial video of her sister and Madison Mogan at a food truck just hours before they were murdered. She also tracked down their Uber driver.
I found neighbors' Ring camera footage so that I can verify that the Uber driver took her home.
Gosh, I give you a lot of credit. You're almost like a detective here, putting all the pieces together.
Quadruple murder in the small college town of Moscow, Idaho, is a mystery that has captivated the nation. It's been weeks since the bodies of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan have been found stabbed to death in their off-campus house. And as more days go by with no answers, experts say the more likely it is going to become a cold case. Now, as seen on cable news network News Nation, the victims' families speak out about their frustrations and not getting many answers from the police.
The family wondered if law enforcement cleared some people too early and why the police haven't privately disclosed their alibis to the families of the victims.
I just feel like there's been a couple individuals that were cleared very fast.
It makes sense if there was some bad behavior that they did. Let's say they came from a strip club or something, and then somebody followed them home. That's a targeted thing. That's what comes. I've had innocent people that were interviewed that were their neighbors, and they said, I'd be a lot more scared if it wasn't targeted.
The mother of Xana Kernodle shared her thoughts with News Nation's Ashley Banfield.
I do not think it was the house that was targeted. I believe wholeheartedly that it was those kids who were targeted. They weren't just acquaintances. These kids were like best friends. They did everything together. How could it not be a planned thing? How could it not have been targeted?
The family was saying they think they're maybe clearing some people too quickly here. What do you think about that?
All right, statistically, we're going to look at what we call the inner circle of their friends, people, acquaintances who might have had a vendetta, a beef, a disagreement that could explain what the mayor called a crime of passion. We see this with a lot of exes, ex-boyfriends, people that they've had falling outs with on social media. But what you do is find the one person is targeted. You don't see them continue with everyone else in the house. So that's what is really unusual from a criminological standpoint. When you think about the fact that one person might have been targeted and they decided to kill everyone else in the house and there was no sexual assault, to me that's extremely interesting. The stabbing motion we typically see in forensic psychology is what we call piquerism. It's a substitute for sexual action when you can't sexually perform. So that has raised some theories that it could be an incel, somebody who's an involuntary celibate, who has issues with what Elliot Rodgers once called Stacy's, those beautiful blonde sorority sister types, because they feel like they're unobtainable.
Well, Kaylee had made comments about a stalker before her death.
I've got to tell you, young ladies, I've been teaching college for 35 years. If they've got a stalker, they tell everyone. They tell their friends. They might not tell their family because they don't want daddy to worry, but they're not stupid. They want their friends to walk with them to bars. I think that if the stalker theory were real, we would have a lot more information on that. People would have a specific person in mind, and that would be a person of interest by now.
Yeah, if this was someone that was attracted to one or both of Kaylee and Maddie, I mean, why go to the other couple?
The person that did this was somebody who is satiated by the killing. I think that's the main thing because of the fact that it continued. And I think what we probably would see is an escalated behavior. So this is somebody who I can guarantee you in the community in which they live, there's people who know this individual as odd, somebody who has a violent past, or somebody they've dated or in their family who's shown a propensity for violence and has increased. Because of the way this was carried out, I just don't believe that this is the first time this person is killed.
See, 50% of this town's population are not from that town.
Right.
They're from, they've come in to attend that university. And look, I work with law enforcement on these things, and we've talked a lot about the profile of these killers, not a lot about serial stabbing killers, because there aren't a lot of those to profile.
There's not, and I have to tell you, Dr. Phil, before I was a college professor, I worked with a coroner in Metro New Orleans, and I was a senior investigator with the ME in Atlanta. Can I tell you right now that in my entire career as a practitioner, I don't ever recall a case where I had a multiple stab wound of 4 victims. I had a couple where I'd have 2, but where people were specifically stabbed in one location, they were kind of corralled in these bedrooms, these intimate spaces like this with such violence. I've never encountered this as a practitioner.
And no vehicle that has come up on any cameras as suspicious would lead me to believe that the person is probably from that location.
All right, coming up, there's a report of a dog stolen and skinned 3 miles away from the victim's house just a few weeks prior to the student's murder. Are they connected in any way? I'm not a big one for coincidence. I just got to tell you, I'm just not a big one for coincidence. Was this practice? Was this somebody warming up to this sort of thing? We'll talk about that next. Closed captioning provided by...
Bring home a spellcasting adventure with the Harry Potter Magicaster wand.
Stupefy!
Connect your smart devices, cast spells, and witness the magic come to life. Lights.
Lumos Maxima.
Sounds.
Media loading.
And your TV.
Expect
Cool. The Harry Potter Magic Caster Wand. Order now.
Suffering from sinus congestion, especially at night? Try Vicks Sinex for instant relief that lasts up to 12 hours. Vicks Sinex targets congestion at the source, relieving nasal congestion and sinus pressure by reducing swelling in the sinuses. Try Vicks Sinex.
There's nothing like volunteering at the fire department.
There's nothing like hitting the waves.
But with my moderate to severe eczema, it hasn't always been easy.
Since my skin was so irritated and itchy.
And even worse with all my gear on.
Now, I'm staying ahead of my eczema.
There's a power inside all of us to live our passion. And Dupixent works on the inside to help heal your skin from within. It helps block a key source of inflammation inside the body that can cause eczema. So adults can have long-lasting, clearer skin and fast itch relief. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor.
Healing from within is a powerful thing.
Ask your eczema specialist how Dupixent can help heal your skin from within.
This is exactly why we chose leaf filter.
Before leaf filter, our gutters would get so clogged.
I used to have to climb up on that roof.
Leaf filter was a lifesaver.
The leaf filter installation process was so simple and easy.
When the salesman gave us interest-free financing and the price was right, it was a no-brainer.
Our downspouts flow freely now.
My home is better protected.
Thank you, Leaf Filter.
Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or go to getleaffilter.com for your free gutter inspection and estimate. Call or log on today and save 15%.
Next on Love and Maritinesville.
I think I saw an interview and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? Hey, don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Maritinesville. New episode, Saturday at 8/7 Central.
So many people are fearful over these 4 brutal homicides that many students have left campus and returned home, leaving Moscow, Idaho, a virtual ghost town.
Living next to the crime scene, it feels very dark. Like there's like kind of a spirit of death around a bit.
They keep saying it's an isolated incident, but if we don't have an idea of who it is, nobody knows what to look out for, and no one knows how to keep themselves and their friends and family safe.
You know, this mass exodus from Moscow, because of people not feeling safe there, would allow this killer to leave in plain sight and not stick out as somebody that all of a sudden he's there, then there's this murder, then he's not, and could possibly be long gone and therefore much harder to locate, much harder to find. We don't know. And I want to talk a little bit about what kind of person, what kind of mentality, what kind of maladaptive emotionality it takes to do something like this. You're talking about a real psychopath here. You're talking about someone that lacks empathy. You're talking about someone that's probably very narcissistic. And there's something called the dark triad. And a dark triad is something that kind of goes beyond the diagnostic categories. It's 3 traits or characteristics that we've identified: psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. And these are 3 characteristics that, when they occur together, it's the perfect storm for evil. It's the perfect storm for people that will kill someone for sport. They will kill someone where they get that feeling, that satiation, that high from doing it. And they can go into a frenzy which is why they would go to the next bedroom and kill somebody else until they got to the point of exhaustion or fatigue or something scared them away. But there's something else about these people. They also are the kind of people that are likely to show up at a memorial service. They'll show up at a funeral. If these people do show back up, they're very likely going to be in the front 20% of the crowd, because the narcissism is going to put them in front where they can see everything, because they think this whole show is for them. The narcissism is going to push them to the front of the crowd, and they're going to be up there because they want to have the full show. So it's really worth getting a good record of who's there in that crowd, and they're very likely to try to take some kind of trophy with them. They just simply can't help themselves. Now, 3 weeks before this happened, on October 21st, reports say a woman let her 12-year-old mini Australian Shepherd out to use the bathroom, but he didn't come back. And they found him skinned 3 miles away from the murder house. And it had to be done by somebody that knew how to do it. Now, police have already said the incident is unrelated to the murders. I don't know how they know that, but I have a really hard time just giving that the back of my hand. How many dogs had they found skinned in Moscow, Idaho in the last forever? And from what I can understand, none. And then 3 weeks before a quadruple stabbing, within 3 miles, they find a dog stolen and skinned. I have a hard time writing that off.
This was one of our exclusive stories at dailymail.com, and I wanted to point out, as you just noted, taking something from a funeral or a memorial, the pelt of the dog was not found with the corpse. The paws and the head were left, the body was skinned, and the pelt is missing.
To me, it's significant that that happened almost exactly 1 month before the slaying of the students. Many people have conjectured, could this person have done it before? And will he do it again? But very often, we do see serialists start with animals. I mean, animal torture, everyone knows that this is very common. And with serial killers, there's almost always a 30-day cooling off period before they do their next killing. So maybe the first victim was the dog, and then the person graduated onto the students.
Yeah, it just, to me, I would be very slow to erase that from the timeline.
No.
Now, the 911 call, what was said and what was not, it could be very revealing when we come back.
Meet Febrez's Miracle Spray, Febreze Fabric Refresher. I literally use this every day to make my house smell amazing. After I make the bed, after I catch my dog on the couch, so I can wear my jacket or jeans one more time before I wash them again. It even makes shoes smell fresh. It doesn't cover up odors with scent, but actually helps eliminate them. Over 1,000 uses. Febreze Fabric Refresher.
Sir, can I interest you in a new phone? New plan?
Look at these guys trying to lure you in with a new phone just to lock you into a contract.
Talk, text, 2 years. Just sign right here.
But if you already have a great smartphone you love, you can get truly unlimited data without the contract. It's simple. Simple Mobile. Just text to see if your phone's compatible, and all for less money and no contract. Ever.
Get truly unlimited data on a nationwide 5G network for just $45 a month. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper. This cough.
This will help.
Vicks Vapor Rub?
Vicks Vapor Rub's medicated vapors go straight to the source of your cough, so you can relieve your cough to breathe easier. Vicks Vapor Rub, fast-acting cough relief.
I've been telling everyone, the secret to great teeth is having healthy gums.
Keep yours healthy with Crest Advanced Gum Restore. It's clinically proven to detoxify below the gum line. And it restores by helping heal gums in as little as 7 days.
Because you can't have a healthy smile without healthy gums.
Advanced Gum Restore from Crest, the #1 toothpaste brand in America.
Bad bed makes for a bad back. During Mattress Firm's Dream December sale, get a king for the price of a queen and save up to $700 on top brands. Plus, get a free adjustable base with qualifying Sealy purchase. Only at Mattress Firm.
It's a new leader in town now.
Are you the one just threatening me? Baby, that's what I say. Come for me, go low. If you want to, I'm going to hell. Okay?
Was it a serial killer or someone they knew?
You could have somebody who is a potential serial killer who has been thinking about doing something like this for a very long time. If the fantasy was fulfilled, then the fantasy will bloom even larger. And very often you're going to find a perpetrator who feels compelled to do it again.
Was it a serial killer or someone the victims knew? Investigators have taken about 4,000 photographs, collected 113 pieces of evidence, and more than 260 tips have been submitted to the FBI. Now, 4 weeks later, this quadruple murder still remains a mystery. Now, cyber sleuths have flooded social media with theories about the case. Now, joining us virtually is independent true crime aficionado Lisa Marie. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor. Thank you.
You said that you spoke to someone who was at the party with Xana and Ethan. What did you discover in talking with them?
So this person wanted to remain anonymous, but they were at the party with Xana and Ethan that night. And what they told me is that Ethan had words with a person who is in the frat, and that it got heated, and that at some point Xana kind of pulled him away. And of course, we have the gap and the missing timeline. So where did they go after that, of course? But yeah, apparently he did have words with somebody. This is what we're hearing. This is rumors at this point. But he did say there were words heated words, a heated exchange between him and another guy.
And Caitlin, the 911 call focused on an unconscious person. Well, what do we know about that call?
As far as I'm concerned, the biggest mystery in this entire, all the evidence that we have so far from our perspective is this 911 call. The series of events around it are very, very bizarre. The 911 call happened a little before noon on Sunday. It was made from one of the surviving roommates' phones, but the cops were very specific in not saying that it was one of the surviving roommates who made the call. It was made from their phone. There were several people in the house at that time. From what we understand and from our reporting, the roommates woke up. They tried to get a hold of Xana and Ethan through texts and calls. They couldn't. They called some friends to come over out of concern. Xana and Ethan, they're not waking up. We think they might be unconscious. We don't know what's going on. Friends come over. A 911 call gets made. What happens around the actual call when it's being made? There's a lot of speculation online about what exactly went down and why the call was for an unconscious person and not victims of a brutal stabbing.
How would they say unconscious if they didn't try to arouse them? And if they tried to arouse them, how would they not see blood from a double stabbing of this couple?
It's copious amounts of blood are going to be at the scene. You would have noticed it. This individual that perpetrated this crime is going to be super saturated in blood. So there would have been a trail perhaps leading out of the bedroom, up the staircase, back down, whatever their points of egress were to get out of this place. You're going to have blood droplets everywhere. I would probably suspect you might even have bloody footprints, maybe contact areas on the wall, because they will just be covered in blood, even if they're wearing gloves. How could you not see that when you walk into this place?
There is a theory that the unconscious person was the surviving roommate, that the reason it came from her phone and not her was that, and this is literally based on just online speculation and conjecture, the roommate went up, saw what you're describing, ran out of the house, and fainted, or ran down and fainted. The person picked up her phone, called 911. We have an unconscious person, not realizing what had caused her to faint. And several people who were in the house picked up the phone and spoke with the 911 dispatcher. The phone was going from person to person, so it was chaos.
Coming up, Kaylee called her ex-boyfriend 6 times prior to being murdered. Now, is this a coincidence, or was she calling for help? We'll talk about that next. Closed captioning provided by...
There is nothing hotter than real, honest-to-goodness love.
Mama wanna tell you where it's at, I wanna get that.
I was made for this.
Get with it or get lost.
You dropped the ball big time.
I'm throwing y'all my very own Miami yacht party.
It just shook up all of the dynamics.
Y'all ready for this?
Bye-bye cough.
Later chest congestion. Hello, 12 hours of relief.
12 hours? Not coughing? Hashtag still not coughing? Mucinex DM gives you 12 hours of relief from chest congestion and any type of cough, day or night. Mucinex DM. It's comeback season.
I've been telling everyone, the secret to great teeth is having healthy gums.
Keep yours healthy with Crest Advanced Gum Restore. It's clinically proven to detoxify below the gum line. And it restores by helping heal gums in as little as 7 days.
Because you can't have a healthy smile without healthy gums.
Advanced Gum Restore from Crest, the #1 toothpaste brand in America.
Hey, did you hear? There are new COVID-19 booster shots designed for recent Omicron variants. Pfizer, the more you want to do, the more we want to do. Schedule yours at vaccines.gov.
There's something new from Better Than Bouillon. Introducing the Culinary Collection. Chef-created flavor combinations like smoky chipotle and Italian herb that add a little something special to your family favorites. But don't take our word for it. The Culinary Collection from Better Than Bouillon.
Stouffer's makes you happy full.
Kids, dinner!
With 2 times the meat and 3 kinds of cheese, you can't be anything but happy full. Stouffer's.
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? Hey, don't keep me outside all this damn
Yeah,
heat.
it's outside today.
You gonna invite me to that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode, Saturday at 8/7 Central.
At a vigil last night, Kaylee Gonsalves' father honored the friendship between his daughter and Madison Mogan.
I want everyone to know that these girls were absolutely beautiful. 6th grade, they just found each other. They did homework together. They came to our house together. They shared everything. Then they started looking at colleges. They came here together. And in the end, they died together in the same room, in the same bed.
This is a very intimate way to kill someone. To kill somebody with a knife is very up close, it's very personal, it's time consuming, and you're involved. You're covered in their blood. You smell the blood. You're right there. And that is a barrier that few people cross. And to do it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, this is a dangerous individual. Somebody knows this person. Somebody out there works with this person. Somebody out there is a parent or a brother or a sister to this person. Somebody knows who this is. And everybody has a baseline. And when people do something dramatic in their life, they tend to depart from that baseline. And you need to think about this. If you're listening to this right now, if there's someone you know that's been in or around Moscow, Idaho, and you think, no, but extend your thinking. You truly, truly need to think about that. Was it something that had scared them? Is that why she called her ex-boyfriend so many times? Were they barricaded in that room we don't know. If you have any tips regarding this case, please call the tip hotline at 208-883-7180 or email the tip line at ci.moscow.id.us. And those will be on drphil.com. I really want to thank all of you guys for coming here today. For more information about today's episode, you can log on to drphil.com. We'd like to take a moment to remember these 4 innocent victims.
Me and Ethan became best friends. Ethan had such an infectious smile and a charismatic personality. Me and Ethan shared a lot of memories together.
I'm Xana's sister. Xana was such a light in my life. She was the person I could relate to the most. She knew and understood me more than anyone. Losing her is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, and it has left me heartbroken. She was so positive and lighthearted and understood the gift of life more than anyone I know. I love her so much, and I wish I would have had spent more time with her and had the chance to continue spending time with her.
Kaylee was our middle child. She was always competitive. There was never a day that she didn't want to race her brother because she was just determined that girls were faster than boys. Kaylee is a huge part of our family. The dynamics of our family will never be the same.
I was Maddie's boyfriend, and she was always amazing to be around. So energetic and happy and a beautiful soul. None of these people deserve this.
Some prayers are with these families. We will see you next time.
All-new Dr. Phil. She claims her mom,
Caitlin, is unfit to mother.
Stole her son.
She got custody of him.
How did you hurt your foot?
I don't know why we're talking about that.
Because it's what I want to talk about.
Giving me my son back. It's that simple.
What's her plan?
You got hurt in a drunken brawl.
Can we move on?
To get him back.
You want them to give you money to take them to court to sue them for custody? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you.
Well, Sandy claims her daughter Caitlin is just simply an unfit mother who put her 20-month-old son in harm's way. She claims her grandson had severe diaper rash with open sores, a bad ear infection, and a horrible case of eczema, and his mother only came to see him once for 35 minutes. But Caitlin claims her adoptive mother, Sandy, is a selfish, crazy, controlling woman who went behind her back and stole her 20-month-old son, and she wants him back. Now, I would like to make a point that it's my opinion that it is good public policy for children to be with their biological parents. I just think that's the way it should be. But that is a privilege that must be maintained through prudent and vigilant parenting. You cannot wave around a DNA certificate and call yourself a parent. Parent is both a noun and a verb, and you need to handle the verb part responsibly or get out of the way. Let's take a look at what Sandy has to say.
My daughter, Caitlin, has accused me of stealing her baby, and that is so far-fetched. The original plan was that my husband and I would care for her child until she could afford consistent daycare.
She didn't even have a place of her own for her and her child.
My husband and I needed to get away for a few days.
So we dropped our grandson off with some people that were going to care for him for about a week.
When we picked him up, he was dirty and he smelled of urine.
I feel like if she were truly a fit mother, this would have never happened.
He had diarrhea, he was vomiting, his eczema was flared up, and he had a bad ear infection that was oozing pus. We got him in the bathtub and we saw diaper rash like I've never seen before on a child. I was in such shock.
Pus was coming out, open sores, blisters, redness.
He was a mess. We immediately called a lawyer. He said, this is definitely a case of neglect. You need to keep this child out of harm's way. I told her that we went to an attorney to file for guardianship. Caitlin wasn't understanding how serious this was. This is a child, it's a baby that has to be protected. Caitlin thinks that we went behind her back and that we plan on adopting her son, which makes no sense. The last time that she actually made an attempt to come and visit her son, she stayed for like 35 minutes. This child can't wait for her to one day just straighten up. I told her that you have to have steady employment, you have to have a stable home, you have to have proper daycare, all of this to really show that you've made the right changes. I think Caitlin has lost her mind. She even told me that I know of crackheads that have their own children, but you're keeping my baby for me.
Okay, Sandy, I'm glad you're here. This needs attention. Why do you have this baby?
Well, in June of 2017, Caitlin was having some financial difficulties, making it on her own, and asked if we'd care for him, bring him to our home. And when she got on her feet, was working steady, saved up a little bit of money, that it was always the agreement that he would come back home to her. He was out of our care for about 8 days. So we got him home, and we noticed he had a really bad ear infection. He smelled of urine, he was dirty, and scratching, itching, and then when we changed his diaper, we couldn't believe the diaper rash that we saw.
But the baby was not with Caitlin.
No.
Okay, so you picked a baby up, and this was not good.
No, it was not
I mean,
good.
this isn't a casual ear infection.
Right, and there was fluid coming out of that open sore. Right.
Okay, so you planned to take the grandson home and temporarily take care of it, but Caitlin was going to do what?
She didn't say what she was going to do. She was going to, I took the baby so she could prepare herself to be self-sufficient enough to be able to take care of his needs, and she never did it.
Still today?
No, no.
Does she have a job?
She does have a job now.
Okay. Sufficient to set up a home and care for a child?
No, because she moved from the area where we live with the child, like 3 hours away, and she's already on her 6th job. So, of course, she doesn't move past minimum wage.
Okay. Did you steal this baby?
I want to be grandma. My husband wants to be grandpa. I don't want to be mommy.
So you don't want to raise this baby till it's 18?
I'm retired. My husband's retired. We love this child.
Okay.
That's a grandbaby.
So I want to talk about how you and Ed got guardianship of the grandson, because November 13th of 2017, according to you, there was no daycare, couldn't afford it, she couldn't afford it. She never showed for her all-day visitations. Showed up one time for 35 minutes?
Well, she came 3 times, you know, since June, but the first time was like, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half. The second time, she did end up spending the night, but very short visit, was like back leaving to go out of town. And then the third time, we waited all day for her to come. She was supposed to come. She never made it. Called the next day, waited all day. She came. She was like out of the house within like 25 to 35 minutes.
Okay. She's broken promises to video chat 2 or 3 times a week.
She promised the very first time that she came to visit, she promised, I says, when you get home, I said, please, I said, let's start doing this FaceTime, you know, because I don't want him to forget you.
Okay.
And she never did FaceTime one time.
And she hasn't seen him since November?
Around November, right.
Why not? Are you withholding the child?
No.
Are you making it hard for her to see the child?
Welcome to come. She's welcome to spend the night, and she knows that. She just didn't make it a priority to try to hook up and get a ride to come and visit him. She doesn't have a vehicle right now because it's broken down, but
well, she can ride a bus.
We could have rode a bus, hitchhiked. I enabled her so long financially, I probably would have gave her money for a bus to come up and visit him had she asked, but she never did ask.
Right.
And I thought, why should I offer? She's the mother.
So why, when she does go to the trouble to get there, why stay 25 or 30 minutes? Where's she going? When she leaves, where's she go?
You really want to know?
Yes.
Well, she came with some people that had other business to take care of somewhere else. Selling pot.
Okay, so she came with people that were dealing drugs, so she had to go with them.
Well, that's from how I see it. That's from what I know about the people. I mean, that's how I feel. Yeah, she was too worried about letting them take care of their business for her to come and spend a good full day of quality time with her child.
Well, Sandy says she filed for guardianship of her grandson because she had to protect him at all costs from his negligent and seemingly disinterested mother. Now, we're going to meet Sandy's daughter, Caitlin, and find out what she has to say about all of this, because there's two sides to this story, obviously. We'll be right back.
My mother went behind my back and got custody of my son. She couldn't have her own children, so she stole my son. My mother is a bitter bitch.
And later, you're calling the woman that is raising your son a bitter bitch.
She is bitter. She couldn't have her own children, and she's trying to take mine.
Next on Love and Marriage Huntsville.
I think I saw an interview, and they asked Mel how she doing with Martell's new boo thing. Oh, she felt probably happier when he was leveling down. But the level up is kind of a gut punch.
Hey, Martell?
Hey, what up? And don't keep me outside all this damn heat.
Yeah, it's outside today.
You gonna invite me into that house? Don't play with me like that.
Love and Marriage Huntsville. New episode, Saturday at 8/7 Central.
There's something new from Better Than Bouillon. Introducing